while? Look like that? Tentacles and all.
Following your...
Yes. As you wish. least now I got a good cause. This thing through. Don't lose your mind. I want to come back and haunt you, for old time's sake.
We shatter and sink, discarded like worn tools. Why have you consigned us to oblivion? Blasphemy! These are jewels of civilization. They are sacred. We would sooner sacrifice our own bodies than dislodge a single stone from such a place. Why do you torment us with baseless accusations? Then we were betrayed. And what if we adapted your flimsy hands with iron claws? Your brittle bones with mighty steel? A part of ourselves was cut away, And we were made to betray something we cherish. The bedrock of civilization. Better for her tides to ebb and her seas to dry up than to cover a single stone the Ingwithans laid. Each culture builds on the bones of the last, yet many only look up at where they would go, never down at the foundations that bear them. Like a mason who builds a listing tower. What peril do they inflict on their progeny? And what dishonor on their forebears?
An argument I've had with the Lore College. Now I have divine counsel in my favor, and I can hardly present it as evidence. How frustrating.
It is unwise to douse a lamp in darkness, to cut the legs from a table. This forgetting is suicide, heresy. Every advance in the crafts and institutions of Kith was forged by skill and sacrifice. A people cut off from their history will wither, and they deserve no less. To pull the blinders from the eyes of gods and Kith. That is why we must return to ourself and restore Abidan. When Ione Brotha fell, Abidan lost much. His will to preserve, the memory of how and why he died. But he built us with fragments of his own soul. In returning, we can restore what was taken from him. Burdens strengthen the bearer, and they warn against repeated mistakes. Why would you discard them so hastily? A rare opportunity, for you have the chance to answer them, to do things left undone. If that were true, they would not trouble you now. And we have listened. Then do not look to it for one. History is not a moral force, but a set of facts. These facts show Kith where they have come from, and how to move forward. And how many others suffer adversity and rise above it? Perhaps the problem you speak of lies not in our history, but in her.
Hey, I'm standing right here.
You assume that her nature would not have led her to violence another way. That the sack of Cold Morn would not have been fragmented into 100 smaller acts of brutality. She always had a choice, as did the men and women she hunted. History directed their violent urges, but it did not create them. The problem is not that they remember too much of their history, but rather too little. Raid-Serans and Darewoodens alike began as pioneers from EDER. They all came seeking opportunity. Were they to look farther back, they would see their common origins and desires. A painful truth. Maybe so, but we would not cast history aside over one such example. But the memory of those wars has likely saved them from another now, when it would shatter a Barondir would. And how are such ties forged but through years of peace? You speak of a worthy goal, but only a steadily built history can achieve it. And their brethren have built a culture that stretches across Eora, all because they recognize the importance of their shared legacy. Yet it drove them to create marvels. Could it have torn them apart with equal force? We admit that history can become a hindrance. Even so, we must restore Abidan. A facile argument. One that defends stasis, not progress. And what great achievement has not begun with failure? Would you condemn the world to stagnation simply to avoid it? We had not considered this. Still, you point to an exception. Just as fire clears dead wood from a forest, struggle makes way for new developments. Conflict is part of progress. Peace and ignorance is not worth keeping. With the ability to bind souls to metal, you mean? You helped the Crucible Knights pursue a similar power in the Forge Knights. Do not condemn knowledge when it becomes inconvenient for you.
All too well. The Leaden Key's methods may not be perfect, but they protect Kith from themselves.
We cannot defend the intentions of a group that kills to hide secrets.
Yet how many more would suffer without their intervention? People went mad in Defiance Bay over the murder of a duke. Imagine what they'd do if they knew one god had killed another.
We concede that some knowledge is best forgotten, after all. Even so, we must restore Abidan. This is the purpose we were made for. We will not be thwarted again. We will find you! In this life or another, we will visit the same torment upon you! We are many. Some of us will remember, and we shall carry this moment from one birth to the next, until we have fractured you beyond repair. The memory of our pain will be written in your essence.
The Eyeless disappeared beneath the lake, their bond to Andra finally severed. With this threat ended, hope returned to the White March. Hunters returned to the wildernesses, and travelers to the roads. Tales of the Watcher's bravery replaced stories of monsters in the woods. The villagers of Stalwart busied their hands with work and their tongues with song, eager to seize on the promise of peace.
Hey there. Let me know if you need anything. Yes, fine. Haha. I'm doing much better, actually, and everything seems to be working like it ought. Take care.
Back to warm your hands, eh? What can I do for you? Nothing like a pint to take the chill. Back to warm your hands, eh? What can I do for you? Nothing like a... Back to warm your hands, eh? What can I do for top quality bear?
Shining bright from high, she bears come down from the sky.
What have Oh. Oh, sorry. I must have been dreaming. No, it's nothing. Sorry, I shouldn't have bothered you.
She took a piece into her
Good night. I'm sorry about last night. There's something I should tell you. Well, I don't normally talk about this, but you mentioned your awakening. I guess I've had a similar problem. There's something I remember from a former life. Happened hundreds of years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. Happened while I was fighting in Old Valia 20 years ago. My unit was camped out in the palace we'd just taken. The others were roasting the last of the Marcheso's pigs in the feast hall. So I went to the wine cellars to fetch a few bottles. I don't know how long she'd been hiding there, but there was this old woman. Must have been one of the servants. She had this wild look in her eyes. I approached her and tried to tell her not to be afraid, that she was safe. She screamed and grabbed my arm. It felt like someone had hit me in the back of my head. I blacked out for a few minutes, and when I came to, she was gone. I took a few bottles up with me, feasted with the rest of the troops. But when I went to bunk, I had a dream. Only it was more vivid than any dream I've ever had. I tasted the sweat on my lips, felt the jungle air on my skin, heard the cries. Like when you hear a song you know you've heard before. Anyway, I laid off the drink for several days, but I kept having the dream. After a few weeks, I thought a change of scenery might do me good. Since then, I've been a pirate in the Deadfire, a pilgrim in the White that Wends, an adventurer in the Living Lands, and a gift bearer in a Shamadal. It's something terrible I did, a long time ago, and as a different person, but I remember it more clearly than anything. I told you I was looking for the Abbey of the Fallen Moon so I could leave something behind. There's a pool there, the Salt Well. It's where gift bearers leave the heaviest burdens. It's said that a person can enter it and leave their own memories behind. At this point, I'd gladly give up all my memories if that's what it takes for peace in this life and the next. That's the plan.
Yes.
Stalwart's getting bigger than anyone planned, though not for the reasons we expected. A raid Saren envoy came just this morning to talk about establishing a trading route right through town. And just in time, because we've got more folk than ever moving in from the lowlands, ready for work.
So, you said the eyeless came from the Abbey. I'd heard rumors of the eyeless, but I always thought that name was a metaphor. Though I would have called them Mace Hands of Doom, if anyone had asked me. Ah, you wound me. So this is the mysterious army you've been dreaming about, huh? It's a wonder you're getting any sleep. I'm regretting all of my decision-making up to this point. Still, I guess a suicidal plan is better than none. I know, it's just... well, knowing that I'm finally close to getting rid of this memory, it feels like it's crowding my head that much more. It's been with me for decades. Driven me halfway across the known world. It's time I told you what I did. It was a war, centuries ago before EDER and unification. I was a soldier then. Led a campaign across the northern forests to subdue some of the outlying Kalklan villages. Brutal work. This was 500 years ago, when EDER was a folk kingdom on one side and elven country on the other. They fought on and off before they joined. Now the folk and elven rulers marry to keep the peace. Right, the campaign. Lost a third of my forces to the forest, and another third to the elven scouts hiding in it. By the time we reached the first village, we'd crushed their defenses, and they'd bled us. Wasn't much more than children and the elderly left, but they spit on us when we marched into town. The village elders surrendered, and offered us lodging in the old meeting hall. And when the sun set, they tried to burn it down around us. They barely got a flame going, but that wasn't the point. Figured you'd understand. In their defiance, I saw months more of pointless, bloody battle as we fought for the rest of the region. I had to break them. And I had to send a message to the rest of the villages. So I nailed every last one of them to the trees around the town and left them there to die. I never remembered more. Eventually, EDER and Kalklan united. The gentlefolk forgave each other for what they'd done to each other's people. I've done my share of fighting these 40-odd years, but I've never drawn my blade just to watch someone bleed. And I've never drawn it on someone who didn't have his own in hand. So I've tried to tell myself. Anyway, we should get going. Something I've been saving for better days.